the alien ships started to come about. Blue flashes flickered along their hulls as their laser turrets charged. Motes of red collected along their lateral lines. They were readying another salvo of plasma torpedoes.
Welcome back to the Rain of Books podcast, episode number 23, 1 million viewers and counting. That number's way off. Don't pay attention to that. I'm John Keel, joining you from the War Room. My co-host is Josh Preston, joining you from Hyrule Cube, the mini Hyrule Cube, because you switch positions on us. This is the reader's entry into great narratives where the written page reigns supreme all the time, always. We love books. Hopefully you do too. And Josh, today's show is brought to you by all the military cliches. Red team, Theta maneuver. Roger that. Wait, what? You know, we're in the military. Maneuver, Theta, Alpha, Bravo, kill. I'm in the military and I don't know nothing about anything else, like wearing civilian clothes or relaxing. My uniform stays on 24/7. Kill. Commander, the enemy has fired plasma rounds that will track and destroy us. We'll have to maneuver the ship so we use their own weapons against them. We'll destroy them with their own plasma. This is nothing new in fiction writing, but we'll pretend it is for the sake of the story. Incoming enemy airships, full automatic machine guns. Yeah! Kill, kill, kill with cold blue steel. Navy, Marines, Air Force, Army. Let's just call everyone a soldier. Captain America, meet Captain Master Chief, also a super soldier. Troops, fall back, we're outnumbered. Ah, Sarge, I was just getting warmed up. Kill! Mobile infantry does the dying, fleet just does the flying. Oops, wrong story. What makes the green grass grow? Blood, blood, blood! And Josh, we thank all the military cliches for being our sponsor today. Back to you.
Wait, I have to recover from that. Let me do 20 push-ups. Keep going. Oh my goodness, all we needed is the drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket, and we'd be 100% there. You know what, John?
This book was full of them, man.
But you hit it on the head. I can't recover. I'm seriously... Oh my goodness. This book is a pure military cliche, but Master Chief is the ultimate soldier. Who cares about Captain America? Who cares about... I can't remember anybody else's name. It's just Master Chief. Hooah, Master Chief! So are we going to like drive any audience members away if we immediately...
I did that already. Don't worry. You won't do anything else to harm the podcast. It's a non-issue.
No, if we immediately, though, say that this book is a video game tie-in, so let's just wait for everybody who doesn't do that to leave, and we are doing a video game tie-in novel, but Halo is one of the coolest super soldiers ever, and they did like 10 books on the guy, and we're starting with the first one. So before we get into Halo, The Fall of Reach, Part 1 of 2, the Rain of Books is a huge spoiler cast, so go read the book first if you don't want to know what happens, or if you just want to hear the military cliches coming. Yeah, listen to us, listen to this podcast. But first up, with news on the book publishing industry. The first short story we have, John, this news article comes to us from Galley Cat. Anybody who has even the faintest knowledge of one of the biggest books in contemporary American literature about a generation of men who grew up without fathers, a lost society of consumerists. This is the Fight Club book. Fight Club. Everybody knows what Fight Club's about. It's not about that stuff. It's about guys beating the crap out of each other. But there's a Fight Club sequel coming as a graphic novel next year. I'm a huge Fight Club fan. So Dark Horse Comics and Chuck Palahniuk, the author, are teaming up to produce the graphic novel sequel to Fight Club. So anybody who's a huge fan of this awesome book that was translated into a pretty amazing movie as well, starring Brad Pitt and Edward Norton, with a twist ending, there's a sequel coming out, so I'm going to buy it. So there's your graphic novel.
Oh, I'm all about that. That was a great movie. And Josh, our next story, this comes from MediaBistro.com. Wattpad expands Creative Commons options, enabling fan fiction is the headline. But the takeaway here is that publishers that are publishing their books on Wattpad can opt in to expanding the Creative Commons on their book, and basically it expands it to a level 4.0 is what the story says here. I don't necessarily know everything about that, but it allows more options for these fan fiction writers to rework and remix the work of these other writers if those writers opt into it.
There's a lot of blurry lines there. You basically have Wattpad, which is a social media writing and reading platform. So you have authors who have a publishing deal and they've published work, they're putting it on there, and they're going to allow fans to do fan fiction on that published work. So it's interesting. You know, lines are blurring. You know, pretty soon, you know, fan fiction, you can make money from some fan fiction, but not the majority of it. So there's all kinds of craziness going on in the publishing industry. I'm a writer. No, I'm a writer. The last story we have before we get to Halo: The Fall of Reach is not ready. No, just kidding. Publishers still don't understand what Douglas Adams knew about ebooks back in 1979. Ben Cameron from the Huffington Post writes an article about how in the age of the ebooks, they're not being translated, taking advantage of the technology and actually leveraging the technology to get people more interested in books. Basically, they're just taking the print file and putting it on digits. And he gives The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy as the perfect example, because any fans of that book know that the book, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, is an ebook in the future. It's this little device that people are reading. It's a satire. It's a sci-fi comedy. But the point is that there are books people could, publishers could sell more. We might buy more. One example is kids' books. I basically bought one of those choose your own adventure books for my kid, and this thing was the clunkiest interface you could imagine. And it certainly wasn't the awesome choose your own adventure books of yesteryear. It was more a graphic novel with a couple of balloon quotes, and that left a bitter taste in my mouth because it couldn't even get that basic function right, path A or path B. So he's right. Let's get with the ebooks. Let's do this. And that is our news for the book publishing section. Now let's get to it, John. Let's actually get to what we want to talk about. We want to talk about this future where the military still has the same red and blue teams, right? We have Halo: The Fall of Reach.
No camouflage in this military.
Nah, man, they got shiny green armor suits, dude, that bounce off every bullet you can throw at it. It's like a tank soldier dude. Terminator. So basically, this is a video game tie-in. Halo, I'm a huge fanboy. I only played the first two because Microsoft, in its infinite wisdom, I should say, did not continue the video game for the PC. It said, we want people to buy our Xbox. So there's this huge fan following for Halo, which is about a super soldier in the future fighting an alien force that pretty much can outmaneuver, outclass, outshoot, and outkill us at every angle. And you kind of get that in the video games, but the Halo Fall of Reach is the prequel to the big story in the video game. So we're being introduced to how the Spartans, that's right, the greatest warriors ever. The cliches even go back to how they named their soldiers. Spartans! So the mighty 300 in this book are boiled down to the mighty 12. But they are the Spartans. They're the genetic super soldiers in super Terminator armor. And the thing is, it's supposed to be the prequel, right? So we're learning how they came about. So we can't expect this interstellar war just yet. We have to learn where they came from. So it's a nice little tie-in. It's a nice attempt. I have finished the book. We're splitting the podcast into two. So I'm going to mentally only talk about part one. So I'm the fanboy. I'm the one who has high expectations, John. What about your initial impressions beyond the cliches?
So my history with Halo is, and hopefully people don't hate me for saying this, when the game first came out, I didn't care anything about it at all. And then a few years later, I actually picked up the original Halo for the PC, played it, beat it, loved it. Great game, a lot of fun. So when we decided to read this book here, I went into this expecting really just a novelization of that game and just a bunch of shooting and killing aliens and some blood splattering and grenades blowing up and all that fun stuff. And I was pleasantly surprised that we got so much more than that in this story. And there are characters that I actually care about from this story. And Josh, I told you this before the podcast, but I've only read half the book like I was supposed to. But this could have easily been an 800-page book. It should have been an 800-page book. This should have been, we did Eye of the World recently. That was about 800 pages. This should have been on that scale. They've got a great story going here with characters they've made me care about. Even though the book's full of cliches, the writer has done it pretty well. Now, there are some issues we'll get to with the book, but it's done well enough that this story should go a lot further than this one book's going to take it. I know there are 10 books, but this should have been a bigger series. They've done a great job.
Yeah, I have a couple of issues. Even if I didn't read all the way through and see the finish, the issues really stem from a couple of other even the Spartans themselves would call snags. I love actually some of the character building, what limited character building there was for Master Chief and his fellow Spartans. But there are snags to this book. Basically they made another game. It was the prequel to Halo, and it was about this planet, Reach, the fall of Reach. It's going to fall. So the game was all about that, but you're a different group of Spartans on the planet. So this book has to kind of work around that other storyline. But I think this book was written before the actual newer game. So the whole point is continuity. Let me just spit it out simply. The continuity isn't there. A lot of other people have actually noted this, people who have done reviews on Goodreads, but they said it's small continuity issues, and they're correct. But the issues still persist that this story has to work around established, canon. And I wanted Master Chief to come save the day like he usually does. But you're right. That is a good book in its own right, and so I just have my expectations high. And the audience of who it's written for, I'm really a little confused. I did take issue with the fact that a middle schooler could read this, a teenager could, because there's no profanity, except they take the Lord's name in vain a few times. There's some colloquialisms where they actually say they think that's fine to do that, but then they steer clear of all other vulgarity or swearing. Right. So I took issue with just who is he writing this for? It seemed really gruesome in some parts. Because
right, it had all the blood splattering, but none of the bad language that usually comes with that.
Yeah, it was weird. It just was really uneven. It was uneven in the writing, because like I'm glad you introduced me to, watch out for formula writing. So this is like a formula story. To be blunt, now we're not going to diss it, because if we diss it right up front, people aren't going to listen to the whole show, because I did love this story. It focused on secondary characters. It actually made me love those characters even more. It said, yes, these people do help, not just the Master Chief by himself doing all this. It's the support team. It's these other brave people, and they're really fleshed out. A lot of the secondary characters. So I absolutely love the book, but it's uneven in where it emphasizes, the protagonist and who we should care for. And in the writing and just in the tempo. So the bottom line is I'm a little kind of disappointed so far, but we're gonna go through this. We're gonna make it happen.
Well, on the other hand, just for the listener's sake, I've been greatly enjoying it, and the writing is pretty solid. I don't really have any complaints, like I had with Myst. About grammatical stuff. The writing is good. This has been edited well. It's not fourth grade level writing like we've seen in other books we've done. So it's a pretty smooth read. It's pretty good. But jumping into the first scene of the book, Josh, that opening scene where you've got red team and blue team and they're killing the aliens and there's thousands of them. This is what I thought most of the book was going to be, and where I ended up being surprised. But that's what I expected more from the book, is this action with Master Chief and maybe some of his team members, and of course my infamous Theta maneuver thing comes up, and he said that to him, and I was like, what does that mean? It's not a basketball play, guys. You know what I mean? It's like, if there's some maneuver they have where one shoots right and one shoots left, and they both shoot a rocket at the same time, or what are you talking about? Theta maneuver. But I think they just like to use that word maneuver when anything about the military comes up. And something else I noticed right at the beginning is this one team is holding off thousands of Covenant and what appears to be a very small area. So I think the first scene, the writer hadn't gotten into his groove yet, and I feel comfortable saying that because if there were thousands of these things coming at you, that would be spread across a pretty wide base. I mean, they can't even cluster in that large of a group without it being a very wide area that you'd have to engage. And it seemed like the Spartans were in this one tight little area holding everything off. So I think once we got past that scene, then you started to see the writer get into his groove and really start building a good story. So I enjoyed the first scene, but I had some issues with it. What about you?
Man, it is so funny. We are the exact opposite. I think on the whole way through, we're gonna be the exact opposite. This was where I was excited, where I thought the biggest strengths were. The prologue actually set up the baseline, how Master Chief was the last line of defense. They talked about his preferences to fighting on the ground versus being, just another piece of cargo in a spaceship. He couldn't affect the battle. Decisively in space we were defeated, but on the ground we could always win because the Spartans never lost. So it was kind of really a strong prologue. And it is strong. I guess basically the prologue set me up to be like, this is going to be good. So basically the fact that it went downhill with the Master Chief and his team, it didn't seem like they got any really good action. It seemed, what I wanted to say earlier, which I didn't with the formula writing, was the fact that it could have been any spy mission. I hate to say it. All these characters in the book were awesome. The Spartan training program, incredible. Even though it's not an original idea, I love how they played out his maturity from adolescence into adulthood and having a purpose in his life. But when it got to but later on, the formula writing could have been any spy. He was sticking up little probes to look, with his spy camera, and they were, doing the hand signals, and it just was very flat, and I was annoyed. So the beginning actually maybe gave me great expectations. Maybe you helped me understand where it was all downhill with just the chief. With just the chief, because I love that guy. But his teammates, come on, man. His teammates did not. His name is Master Chief. What are their names? It's Kelly and Sam and James. I'm like, and Fred. Seriously, they have a Fred.
We can't have too many Master Chiefs. I mean, you got to have some petty officer second class and third class and first class and all that stuff.
Call them that. They should call them that.
Petty officer second class Kelly. Actually, we'd have to know her last name.
Let me just throw in the fanboy service here. When you go down to Reach, the other Spartan team in the game, the prequel to Halo, their team name is Noble Team, and your character is Noble 6. They should have been like, not Blue 1 or Blue 2. It should have been like...
Call signs.
Yeah, it should have been awesome. But anyway, so the Spartan training program. So after the prologue, we actually go to Dr. Hasley, who's the doctor who has this crazy, military experiment to take the best human specimens and train them, augment them. But here's where the book, again, knowing the game, it's interesting for me. I don't know if it's as interesting for the reader not knowing the canon or the ethos of this whole story. But they're training these Spartans not to put down an alien threat, John. Was it clear to you why they had this training program or what the military was going to use them for?
Absolutely. You had rebel factions that were rising up, and they wanted to put a harsh end to it.
Good.
Immediately.
Because that's huge. That's the whole thing. It was humanity is not one big hunky-dory thing. So yeah, that was why they came about. But here's the ethical dilemma. This is a doctor who basically is kidnapping kids, and we find out later they replace them with clones. It's not like, oh no, my child got kidnapped and the parents are distraught. But basically these kids are the best human specimens there are. And we have Lieutenant Keyes, which becomes Captain Keyes later in the story, and he's in the game, so it's this character who you love and and so again, for me, that fanboy service was good, and it wasn't just fanboy service. It was like these characters start to get fleshed out. He had service academy problems. He basically didn't follow all the rules. He's kind of, he's a rebel officer, whatever you want to call him. So they kidnap the kids and they put them in a training program. And John, this kid, Master Chief does have a normal name too. His name's John, but it's
John,
cool.
of course.
It's John, yeah,
John.
John.
John, Jim, Sam, whatever, you know.
No, that's a real soldier's name. That's a good
That's
name
right.
there.
He's a soldier, but actually he's in the Navy. I don't know how that works, but you know, okay, it happens in this book.
Yeah, we can't get bogged down in U.S. military jargon, but I did love the fact the character building was just really strong here. So maybe it wasn't all downhill. It just, when he became a true Spartan, the missions were kind of flat. Let me clarify that. I know we're like 20 minutes in, oops, but we should clarify it was those missions that were just a little flat. But here it talked about Dr. Hasley going up to him as a kid and flipping a coin, and him seeing her seeing his reflexes. When he catches the coin, he guessed which side the coin would land on. So could he see it? Was his vision that acute? He wasn't a superhuman at this point, or was he just lucky? So
well, the book led you to believe that he was carefully watching that coin flip. So I was kind of torn on whether he had actually watched it because he was that perceptive. But the book also made a point to say, hey, you know what? Luck is kind of a factor in this as well. And he is the luckiest soldier of all, right? If you play the Halo games, and he's supposed to win at the end. So clearly he is very lucky. And see, this is where I, again, get away from your line of thinking where I thought it got better. They added little things in there that just made it matter a little bit more. I'm like, oh, luck. Oh, okay, well, and they built a video game character who, of course, is going to win in the video game, and they really brought it to life here in a mostly believable way, other than this, I never take my uniform off, I'm in the military, like I don't live at all outside of the military. Once you get past a little bit of that stuff, they built a pretty believable character.
No, I loved it too. I told you it was when they just went on their official Spartan missions midway through the book. Those paled in comparison to all the other missions from the other characters and from this character developing. No, you're right. So this character developing does continue, and this all is awesome because John enters the program. Master Chief basically wants to be the best. And there's some simple lessons that the writer gives us. They're all, they're all instructive, I should say, for us and for John, so he can learn how to be a soldier, and we learn what kind of soldier he is. So teamwork, he rockets off as a 6-year-old kid, and he finishes the obstacle course without his team. He rings the bell on the obstacle course, and he's like, I won. And Chief Mendez, his instructor, says, no, you won. Your team lost. So he learns teamwork in that chapter, right? Years later, it's really cool. They're on a mission, and they're going to be dropped off with fragments of a map. And John he's really perceptive. While they're in flight, he picks out a landmark. He tells Kelly and Sam, his two closest buddies, to tell everybody else in the aircraft to go to that rendezvous spot. And that because the last Spartan to actually get back to the drop ship at the end of the mission will have to walk back. So basically, he does know teamwork at this point in his training, and he gets them all to the rendezvous spot, and they put together the map, and then they go to the drop ship. And it's really hilarious. It's just great. It shows his training and how he advances in his training.
Well, Josh, but here this is focusing. He got the teamwork part, but this is, and again, this is where I have the writer on the back. Master Chief is going to be the leader of the group. We know this from the video games, but how do you make the reader believe that he's the leader? Well, you have a couple ways you can do it. You can just say, well, he's the leader. He has all the natural leadership abilities, but that's not what they do. They go through this whole process, chapter after chapter, to build that believability in. And you see this natural progression of John into the leader, right? He wasn't just the leader. And little things like him thinking to say, hey, look, let's all meet up at this landmark and let's go together, right? The fact that he did that, it's just one little thing. It wasn't just suddenly I'm the leader and I know everything. And they progressed into it. They eased the reader into it. And this is where I just give what is it, Nyland? Is that the guy's name?
Yeah, Eric Nyland.
I give him a pat on the back. It was well thought out.
Yeah, you're right. He didn't just assume command, and it was believable. Because at the end of this one mission, it was pretty hilarious. Because at the drop ship, there were guys there that were going to basically beat them and take them hostage, not just let them finish the mission. That was one of the tricks. Chief Mendez, their instructor, liked to put tricks in their training missions, and Master Chief was always wary of those. So he's the one who led them to basically flank these guys, and then all these little 8-year-old kids are
throwing rocks.
They're throwing rocks and
Well, I
kicking
think
the
they were a
crap
little
out of
older
them.
than 8, weren't they? Were they 8 at that
This was the
point?
8. Yeah, this is
Yeah,
2 years later. This is just 2 years
they
later.
were pretty young. Hey, could you imagine though? And these kids were superhuman. Could you imagine? And they're in the Navy. If our Navy SEALs started training at that age, think about how awesome they would be. And they're already the best you can get, really. So think about that for a minute. Just think about that. That's all.
It would be dangerous. They'd
It
be
would be dangerously. Yeah.
Spartans, yeah. If our society would allow that, heck, that'd be awesome.
Oh yeah, it would never happen, but it would be pretty incredible.
That'd be awesome. So basically, we get to the part where they get augmented. There's 75 of these kids that were abducted, indoctrinated, and Dr. Hasley, she has again her moral qualms with, we don't know the effects of all these combined, I guess, biomechanical augmentations, and it's pretty cool. They actually, the writer does, again, the writing is really good. It's just it falls flat where it counts on those missions later. I'm going to have to keep reminding myself, no matter the praises we give him now, because he talks about all the augmentations they'll get. I'm like, wow, this is going to be awesome. And the 75 people, youths, they're about 13 years old, and they go through this augmentation. Only 20-something actually come out, or 30-something come out okay. So half of them die, half of them are crippled. So, John is having qualms with, did I do something wrong, because he doesn't want to lose any soldiers, and Chief
even though that was completely out of his control. And here's an area of the book where a cliche came up that actually really irritated me, and that is the whole acceptable losses thing. Yeah, yes, there is the understanding that you will, assess loss in any military battle, but they really take it a little too far in this one, where it's like these are acceptable losses. Like not really. That's not really the way any military looks at its personnel. There's too much money involved, too much time, too much training for you just to say, well, we lost those 3 or 4. It's acceptable. It's within the parameters. Not, that cliche gets a little overbaked.
No, you're right. I'm looking at they haven't met the covenant here, but you're right. Even in the future, it's acceptable losses, like you said, which shouldn't be the case. And Chief Mendez actually tries to sit here and explain to Chief the fine distinction between sacrificing a soldier or using a soldier that might die versus wasting a soldier's life. So he's trying to make this this distinction. And in that military culture, at the end of the day, if you're protecting the civilian population or protecting your way of existence and your actual survival as a species, then it might come into play where, yeah, we've got to lay down the final line if we're going to win, if we're going to survive. So you're right, military cliche that came up here. John didn't think that he should have lost that mission, or rather, he can understand what he did wrong, and it was out of his control. But he's always going to remember that lesson. And we get to the part where these guys, what's happening at this point? Because we switch back to Keyes, Captain Keyes. He's actually a commander, and he's in charge of. He has a couple of ships. This guy's not very well respected in some circles, but he actually is a heck of a commander, a heck of a teacher, and he gets a crew. And where are they headed? I forgot, because they come under fire. The battle with the Covenant.
Yeah, you're talking about the one where it says one ship against the 4?
Yes, one ship against the 4. Are we there yet?
One, I can't. Well, we did skip over. We skipped over the part where the Spartans go, because the situation's become so desperate with these. They're showing them videos of the Covenant ships coming and basically hitting a planet with so much heat and energy force that it glasses the whole planet, and they have to send them to get these super soldier suits. And it's like Captain America meets Iron Man right here, Josh. And they go the Mjolnir suits. Is that how you say it? They go and get these suits, and of course, like any normal human being, as soon as he rotated his arm, the suit amplified it with such force it just tore the guy apart. And I started having questions after the Spartans got in the suits and made it work. It's like, well, how do you not accidentally grip your rifle too hard and crush the whole thing? But that was never explained, but I forgive the book for that. But there's a scene I wanted to talk about, and that is during their journey on the Commonwealth, the USNS Commonwealth, USNC, UNSC, that's what it was, Commonwealth. And a Covenant ship attacks them while they're trying to get to this planet to get these super soldier suits. And they end up dropping out of the planet. They get them, they come back, and they decide to go on a little spacewalk and penetrate this Covenant ship and destroy them from within. And Sam is sacrificed here, and this is where you see the concept of wasting a soldier versus using them to achieve the goal kind of be fleshed out. But Sam is shot in the side with a plasma rifle from a Covenant warrior, and he's got a hole in his side and in his armor, and he basically has to stay because he can't go into space because he'll have decompression. And the point I wanted to make here, really just to be a chump about everything here, is that surely with all this technology and all this great stuff you can do, you would have equipped each suit with some kind of like bat utility belt that had Covenant repellent and maybe some kind of foam to seal a hole in the suit so that you wouldn't decompress if you had to go back into space, but that wasn't there, so I guess we just had to suspend our disbelief a little bit more. But so that's how they get the suits. And then you kind of get away from Master Chief, and this is where you were saying you have a big complaint, because we don't really hear much about Master Chief after this. Then it kind of comes back to Commander Keyes, and then it's all about this big space battle that ensues next. And this is just the first half of the book. I kind of suspected maybe in the second half we'd hear more about Master Chief, but I'm not sure. So far it's been about the secondary and the tertiary characters. But going back to Commander Keyes, this battle here at the end of the first half is something worth talking about. Would you agree?
No, it is. It's actually really cool because the secondary characters, Captain Keyes, I don't want to call him a secondary character because he is actually one of the main ensemble cast that is smart enough. He's one of the best the military has to offer. He's like an Admiral Adama from Battlestar Galactica. I loved him in the game, but when I saw how much he had a role he had in this book, I was like, this is amazing. This guy has spent his whole life studying naval tactics. So he even without the artificial intelligence kind of hologram, which usually helps with all the navigation and all the maneuvers and the calculations on board these big USNC naval ships, he can do these calculations in his head. So he gets command of this ship with an untested crew, and there's even one guy who's freaking out when they get into battle. And he's calm on the outside. On the inside, he's freaking out too. But he basically goes up against 4 Covenant ships, and he knows that he's probably dead because usually the UNSC only wins these space battles if they outnumber the enemy 3-1. So the Covenant have eradicated the outer colonies. It's been years and years and years. We actually do jump in this book a lot. The war itself has progressed, so Master Chief has been on all these missions and won all these ground wars, and you never hear about him because the whole book is years later where we're trying to figure out a strategy that will work. Nothing's working. We're getting systematically our butts are being handed to us basically. So this is all set up, and that's beautiful, and that's what makes it believable when you know that Keyes is probably a dead man. He cannot go against 4 of these cruisers, and I absolutely loved it. I love the fact.
But he's not a dead man because some cliche is going to swoop in and save the day.
No, he didn't do a cliche. Well,
yes, he did. He did the infamous Tom Clancy maneuver in The Hunt for Red October, where the enemy ship fires torpedoes, and they're tracking the good guy ship, and the good guy ship just turns and heads straight for the enemy ship, and then turns just in time. Then the torpedoes are like, oh, well, there's a target, boom, and they blow that one up. It's cliche all the way.
All right, there's a cliche there, and they're writing. I mean, we finally figure out that
this was a good space battle. Now, this was I thought it was well-written space battle. It was a great, very hard punching.
And I loved how they actually destroyed the Covenant ships. He used what? 3 Mac rounds, 4 nukes. He used all his fighters. He actually sent some of his fighters. He knew these individual fighter pilots were going to die. So
no. You're confusing that battle with the Commonwealth battle.
Oh.
He didn't send out tisk. He didn't send out any fighters, but he did expend every bit of ammunition on his ship, and then he tried to name that maneuver after himself, the Keyes Loop.
Didn't.
When clearly, they called it the Keyes Loop. When clearly that was the Tom Clancy maneuver. First of all, I first saw it in a Tom Clancy movie, and second of all, it's the military, so we have to use the word maneuver. It's a Tom Clancy maneuver, the Keyes Loop. What is this?
Well, the Keys Loop, yeah, he didn't name it after himself. But he got his captain pips or his captain wings because of that
Yeah.
maneuver. So that was really cool. I don't want to go too far because I know I've read the whole book, so I don't want to jump
Yeah.
past this space battle. But on the
Here.
ground, again, we did flesh out the ground battle here too, though. Also, John,
Oh
because
yeah, that was pretty good.
they're Marines with the Warthog. We find out that the Covenant wants something on the planet. So even here, the Marines who are trying to get away in their Warthog, they're sitting here running through the jungle. They're in the thick of it. They got a man down. They got another guy frozen up. So it's again military cliches. It could be any book. But I'm sitting
Actually,
here.
that was okay. I forgave them for that one. These characters were pretty good.
Yeah, and I'm enjoying it. The point is I'm enjoying what they're writing because this is the stuff I want to see. I want to see my universe outside of the Halo mission or the Master Chief mission. But these guys are pretty much obliterated. These are the last remaining survivors. Their base is obliterated, so they're in their Warthog just hanging out on the planet, trying to get medical evac. And then the Chief comes down with his red, blue, green, orange, and purple teams, however many 3 teams he has. And that's when they go to reconnoiter the city. And they go through the jungle, and I don't know. It's
Well,
just
but now you're getting ahead because this is where I had to cut off. See, listeners, I'm sorry. He's confusing chapter 21 with chapter 20.
What? We didn't get here?
No, we didn't get there yet. But I know there are lots more theta maneuvers on the way, whatever that is.
Oh, I'm sorry, man. I thought I had the chronology down pat. Okay, I'm sorry. Forgive me. I did want to finish the book to see how many times Master Chief could kill the same guys over and over. And
Was there a lot of blood splattering? There was a lot of blood splattering in this book.
Blue and purple blood is somewhere that I remember, but it was pretty fun. It was a lot of fun. I was like, wow, I'd like to see this as a video game. We get to play Captain Keyes and we get to play the Marines. Oh yeah, and there's Master Chief. Wave at Master Chief. So I'll quit dogging on the book because we'll save our final judgment for part 2. But thanks for joining us for part 1. We now have a captain in the fleet. We know that he's going to link up with Master Chief eventually because those two guys, they're like bosom buddies. And we have a couple other more surprises ahead, and we have a lot more standoffs with the Covenant. That's the whole book. We haven't even got to the point where they attack Reach. It's actually pretty cool, and we need to explain other good points about we have it's treasonous if you sit here and don't blow up your station or blow up your ship at the Covenant, get any human technology, and they can find out where Earth is. Excuse me, because Earth is the big secret. So there's this thing called the Cole Protocol. That's another Tom Clancy type shenanigan where if you are engaged the Covenant, blow up all your equipment, So there's a lot of good details in the book. So if this was a game, this would actually be a cool game. But again, Master Chief would be the supporting character, and so we'll find out next week how things end up, why Reach falls, and why we should care. But thanks everybody for joining us on this episode of the Rain of Books podcast. Thank you, John, for the some commentary on why it's good writing, even though my fanboy just couldn't get past some of the stuff.
Theta maneuver.
All right, I'll catch you next week. Same place, same time.